Hello, my oodles and noodles. We're back to geek out some more because that's what we do. We geek out because COVID and boredom and winter and because we're geeks. Yeah. So we are going to talk yet again about the Dragon Crown War, which I have done two videos of if you have not seen them. First being a Dark Glory War, which is sort of a standalone, but then is technically part of this series. It then goes on to a Fortress Draconis. And after Fortress Draconis, we have When Dragons Rage. Can you see that? Can you see it? When Dragons Rage. And When Dragons Rage is, to me at least, the second book in this trilogy. And it's dragging, people. It's dragging, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. If you have not watched or read, of course, if you haven't read these books, go read them, because you should still read them anyway, because, books are awesome. But if you haven't and you want to, take a gander at my review of A Dark Glory War and Fortress Draconis first, so you get a little bit of a general idea of what I'm talking about, check that out first. I try to keep this as spoiler-free as possible, but sometimes I slip up and I'm just not that careful. I'm not. It's just how it is. So When Dragons Rage is continuing our story of young Wilberforce, aka Will, Kerrigan, Kedden's Crow, aka Tarrant Hawkins, Resolute, and of course General Alexia, as we further along our plot in the battle against the evil Empress Chytrine. And of course this goddamn woman is a pain in the ass. She's a pain in the ass. No matter how many of her people we kill, she still sticks around. She's annoying. That's what I have to say. And she, of course, is trying to gather these fragments of the Dragon Crown. She wants to gather these fragments because these stones, once she has them, allows her to control dragons. Some dragons. Not all dragons. Some dragons, which of course gives her an exceptional amount of power. She's already an extremely powerful sorceress, but she wants more power. And controlling a dragon is a pretty good way to get power because they're huge. They've got way better magic than everybody else. And they can pretty much fly above us and just burn us to cinders. So, dragon, good. No dragon, bad. But to move along in our story, in our development, the battle continues. We're killing Sulan Siri. We're murdering Vylons and Temerises and killing so much because this is a military fantasy and we gotta kill. And that's like 60% of the book is just murder and mayhem. And then there's some character development, of course. And Will is getting a little bit more interesting by this book. We're seeing some pretty big changes happening with him. Obviously, he's surrounded by new people, warriors, nobility. He's seeing crazy things. He's no longer just some kid who grew up in the slums stealing stuff. So he's developing well, and that's pretty interesting. We're seeing also some really, really cool resolutions, not perfect resolutions, but some resolutions to the problems that Tarrant Hawkins, aka Kevin's Crow, had within the first two books, and he's finally getting some payback. And Alexia is very much involved in that. That development between him and Alexia is pretty cool. For those of you looking for some interesting romance, it's good. There's not really that much else romance-wise in this book. There wasn't pretty much anything in Fortress Draconis. We don't really get much in the way of romance. We're much more focused on politics, military, magic, boom, boom, shakalaka, fla. So we're not really getting much of that, but what's there is nice. It's pleasant. It leaves a good taste in your mouth. But of course, we do get introduced to some new characters in this book. I mean, you see them a little bit within Fortress Draconis. So we see Earl Stoke, we see Marcus Androgans, who's another general, and they're developed decently well. Marcus Androgans definitely has some quirky characteristics to him as a general, even though there's such a primary focus on him developing his strategy for just destroying parts of Chytrine's army, seeing his past and that he's not fully like other people, and there's some other new kinds of magic that he has access to that others don't, is pretty interesting. But overall, character development still kind of lags in this story, but better than the first, better than the second. So it's on a positive trend towards, okay, characters are having some more fluidity, some more dynamism to them. They're really starting to showcase themselves a little bit more. But Michael is still kind of stuck on the whole heroes stuff. Everything is about, are you a hero? Are you not a hero? That's all that matters. Heroism everywhere. And that can be a little bit frustrating, can be a little bit boring sometimes, but he does it pretty decently well. So I'd still say for character development, we're looking at still like a 7 on 10. It's not bad. It's pleasant sometimes. It really depends on who we're going with. The world building, just like in Fortress Draconis, as far as I'm concerned, is fantastic. There's still some great development happening. The battle scenes, the flowing terrain, the military tactics, all that stuff is really well developed. And of course, the politics is just amplifying even more, kind of centrally focused around one of these characters, King Grainwood, who was the bastard of the first book, A Dark Glory War. He's a bastard in A Fortress Draconis, and I hate him even more in When Dragons Rage. The man should have been killed a long time ago, but he's still alive. It sucks. Me no likey. But he's alive. It's probably one of my most hated characters ever. Just because he's such a little rat. He's a rat. That's what he is. Grainwood. Even his name. Grainwood. Michael did that on purpose to make sure that we would hate him just from that name. But his son is Earlstoke, and Earlstoke is pretty damn cool. He's a fine fellow. A fine fellow indeed. So, if you're looking for a continuation of Fortress Draconis, kind of decent character development, really cool, interesting world building, a lot of revenge, and some pretty damn good fight scenes, you're going to get that in this book. You're going to get it. You're going to get some more interesting background to Kerrigan and see some more magic and find out more about dragons. The ending of this book is actually pretty damn good. I mean, it's a twist. It's a twist that you're kind of not expecting. I mean, it's not a big surprise, but it's still a nice little twist. And so, I think I'm still stuck on giving the whole book really a 7 out of 10. Because it's still lacking that kind of something to it. But overall, it's pleasant. It's fun. It's enjoyable. It's got really, I think one of the things I enjoy the most about this series is the different races. I mean, they're in high fantasy, we see elves all the time. We see dwarves all the time. We see humans all the time. There's very few authors that can make little changes to those kinds of templates and make it interesting. But Michael does a really good job here. The Uzrethi, actually, I like the concepts of it, even though it's obviously foolish and ridiculous, but even their matriarchal system. So Uzrethi within this series follow a pure matriarchal society, and men are used kind of like broodmares and just like mules, basically. It's pretty horrendous, but it's done really interestingly well. He doesn't spend a lot of time focused on it, which is a good thing, because if he spent too much time, he would have to address it from a purely like ethical perspective, because the book is so focused on what's right and wrong. But of course, he just touches upon it, so it's still a pretty interesting concept. Even more is the differences between the elves. Usually elves kind of, I mean, a lot of stories do well showcasing different kinds of elves kind of playing off against each other, but the elves within this series are much more, there isn't this kind of high-mindedness to them. They can be arrogant as shit, but they're much more childish in a certain sense, even though there's such a high focus on showcasing the difference in maturity between people such as the Loch Elves and the Vork Elves. So I don't know if I mentioned it, but within this series, there's a really fascinating way to how the elves structure their societies. They have what's called the Kereski, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but basically their homelands, they basically bind themselves to their homelands. So because the Vork Elves have been exiled from their land, they were conquered, and their land's been corrupted. It's driven many of them mad. Most of the adults died or left. The younger elves, I speak, some of them they're still pretty much long-lived immortals in a certain sense, but they haven't been bound to their homeland, so they're all considered children, even if they've lived like 100, 200, 300 years. It's kind of a weird concept. It's a weird system, and of course doesn't make sense in some instances, but that's how they view it. Michael did a good job of just showcasing different races and positive things, negative things, things that make no sense, and just really seeing that clash between the cultures as they try to deal with it. So fun. We'll keep it at a 7. A nice solid 7, 7.5, but it's not worthy to me of an 8, unfortunately. Let me know what you think down below. You can check out the Dark Glory War and Fortress Draconis, my reviews of them down below. I will link them. Like, comment, subscribe. Check out the website geektales.ca, and of course, thanks again for listening.